we're going to look at how to read and write text to a project. Now, we can read text and embed a text file in a project, but we can't write to it. In order to write to it, that file's got to be in our documents directory. Or there's a few other directories it can be in. The documents directory is the most common. So I embedded a simple text file into a project, and then I'm going to show you how to write some code. I'm going to give you the code we're just going to copy and paste it in, to copy that file, that text file, into the documents directory, and from then on work with it in the documents directory. So this is simple, a little project here. This is the data that comes up. I was testing to make sure that it actually loaded when I'm playing with this. But so if I type in CASA and say show English, it's going to show me the English equivalent. So it takes the text from a text file and puts it into a dictionary. And then we can add more values of those dictionaries. So right now you can see what's currently there. So we'll see later we can add a pair, and we have it bring up a UI alert, and we'll save it to our dictionary, and then we'll come back and relaunch our program and verify that that new data is actually there. So we're basically persisting the data of our dictionary as we build it. And for the amount of data we're using in the type of projects we're building, I think using a text-based database is sufficient, or using core data is sufficient. When we get into really large amounts of data, that's where we probably want to start thinking about an actual database, whether it's SQLite, using a JSON file, although really a JSON file is nothing more than a text file that's got some specific formatting in it, or using something like Realm, or using something that's cloud-based, such as MySQL, and there you have to write a PHP script to kind of be the go-between. That gets a little more involved. So there's all kinds of ways we can do data. Couchbase is another one that's popular amongst some web developers, or actually iOS developers. It sounds like Realm is becoming more and more popular. And I think with Realm, you have to use CocoaPods as well. So, and there's definitely CocoaPods out there to help you doing Swift and doing SQLite. And so I would look at those examples. All right, so we're going to create another, actually, I'm not going to even create the project. I'm going to show you what I did and walk you through it. So I have a project out here called Read Write Demo. Bring up the storyboard. So for the storyboard, I created a label, just my title, another label for Spanish word, and then I have a text field, a label and a text field. So the idea here is we're going to create a Spanish-English vocabulary where the user can enter a Spanish word and see the English equivalent. And there's a button that will do that. So they enter the Spanish word here, click Show English, and it shows the English equivalent. And let me just run that so you can see how this works. So here's my data coming from my text file. And all the data contains, I'll show you the file here in a minute, it's just the Spanish word and the English word. So when I read the data in, I want to display that it was actually working. So I just get a little sentence structure here of the Spanish word means that. But here I'm going to type in one of the Spanish words. So, oh, let me show you my problem that I had. I'm going to see if I can duplicate this here. So I'm going to restart. Hopefully the problem I had will duplicate again here. Oh, it didn't. The thing I was coming up with was I would type something into this field. Let's see what happens if I clear. Oh, it works, okay. So I have a clear button here that includes the fields. So here's what was happening. It wouldn't allow me to enter text. I couldn't delete that was there. Even the clear button wouldn't get rid of the text. In fact, what happened was the program just froze up every time I came into this field. And I spent several hours trying to figure out what did I do wrong. It's not that complicated a program, but I was, I assumed it had to be me. And I did a little searching and discovered that, well, with Xcode 11, And they said 11.0. I'm running 11.3, I think. What happens is with some of the text fields, it'll lock up. And so here's the trick that I found on Google, and it's worked every time I try to do it. I had to come into Edit and turn off the automatically sync pasteboard and then restart the device, restart the simulator. And then things work fine. After I did that, though, I found other stuff that didn't work that sometimes had to go in and turn that back on. I don't remember what it was. I think it was I was trying to do some video stuff. And the YouTube video player doesn't seem to care. But just something to be aware of if you encounter that. Sometimes the simulators are really kind of buggy. And again, they're using a virtual machine. And so sometimes that causes problems. But chances are if you encounter a situation, somebody else has already encountered it. And if you search long enough, you're going to find some answers. All right, so the idea here is I'm going to type in a word. And I click Show English, and it shows me the English word. Now, if I type in something that's not in here, gato, I get a not found. I have it turned red. Clear button turns both of these. And we'll come back and we'll add gato here in a minute. The add pair, we'll explore that in a minute, what that does. So that's kind of the gist of this thing. Here is the Spanish English. It's just Spanish word, tab, English word. Just set it up in a text editor is all I did. All right, back to our storyboard. So here's the problem. You can read the Spanish English file. Back to my hierarchy here. We can read that. That's not an issue. What you cannot do is you cannot write to that file. In essence, it's a read-only file when it's compiled into our project. So what we have to do is take that file and copy it to the documents directory of the device, which a user can write to. So that's one of the issues. Let's go back to our storyboard. So in the storyboard, I set up outlets for the text field for Spanish, English, and then I did a text view down here just for messages as I was debugging this thing. And that's where we saw, once I loaded all the data, I wanted to make sure it was coming in correctly. So that's where you saw casa means house and ventana means window. All right. I created a variable called Spanish English. It's a dictionary, and it takes two strings. First string is going to be Spanish, second string is going to be English. And then I created a reference to my file that is called my file. I made that a constant. So I've got an empty dictionary to start. In my view did load, I put this little routine in here because I don't want to simply copy this file or that Spanish English text file back to the documents directory every time I start my project, because any changes I made to it would be lost. It's going to go back to that original file. So I created a little if structure here that if not file exists in the name of my file, which was SpanishEnglish.txt, if that exists in the documents directory, I don't want to do anything. But if it doesn't, so if the file does not exist, I'm going to call a method called createDataFile. I'm going to pass it file name as my file. Now, before I get to that, I'm going to jump way down here in my code as I added a whole section here called read-write documents. And I gave you that code in a window or a Word document, because there's two Word documents here. I gave you this one separately, and then I gave you this other code separately. So all you really have to do for this project is just assemble it and test it and debug it if it has any problems. So, and I wanted to give this to you because it would take a while to figure all this stuff out. I just found some things on the internet that I simply reappropriated and modified a little bit the way that I code. So there are methods here. There's a method here for getting the document directory. There's a method here for appending to a file in the documents folder. There's a method here for reading a text file in the documents folder. And again, we're passing in a file name. Okay? This documents directory is going to be used for creating a path. There's a method here to save a document or to write a document out to that file. And again, this is going to be a file in the documents directory. And then you can see I got these from a couple different sites. I wanted a method to find out if that file exists in documents directory. So that's what I did. And then the last one here is I want to be able to copy the file from my project to documents directory. So again, just Googling, you're going to find methods to do that. Copied and pasted them in and made some modifications. These are all publicly available. This is not any sense of plagiarism. And so while I don't allow you to share code with one another in terms of solving a particular project, you are always welcome, of course, to pull stuff in from other people that you're using and reappropriating as long as it's appropriate to do so. Same with using CocoaPods. Basically, they're using somebody else's routines that they've made available. So what I did here as far as rename is I probably changed some of the structure a little bit, but of course used in some of these cases maybe a different variable name that made more sense to me. And then I put a usage comment out here of how would you use these things. So again, using stuff, I have let my file equal SpanishEnglish.txt, whether it exists or not, writing to the contents, and then saving. And for saving, I know one of the changes I made was I think I added a Boolean variable or Boolean result to make sure it actually worked. So I could then, in an if structure, place a message down here as to whether it actually wrote the data or not. So those are some of the changes I made. All right, so when we go to create our file, this create data file is here. I'm sorry, again, the file from my bundle, the file name, so it's SpanishEnglish.txt, and they keep the type separate from the name. And then in a do loop, I am opening that file and then saving that file out. So I'm reading it and saving it. And then I do it in a try catch to make sure it actually works, and I simply catch some of the times or some of the issues that might come up. So if it worked, we should see the file created in documents directory in our message box. If it didn't work, it's going to show file not created in the documents directory. And then I have another one here for the catch file not created if something goes wrong in this process. So this is simply whether the successful is true or not. This is if something goes wrong. And then finally, another one is if that file path is invalid. And I put little numbers after my errors so that if the user was using this and they said, hey, I'm getting error 5, it's easy to come into my code and find out where that error is. Even if I wasn't displaying it, I guess they wouldn't know if you didn't display it. So that's copying the file. And again, I gave you this code, just paste it in. But I just wanted to walk you through the process here. Okay, so after it's created that file, I need to populate the dictionary. So that it's going to populate the dictionary from the file in documents directory. Now, if you're working to modify the file, you could populate straight from the bundle and not have to use the documents directory. But I want to be able to make this a read-write process. So here I'm reading the contents from the document and then setting an array. I'm splitting it. Here's another issue I had. I originally split it on just the new line character. You need the /r/n in Mac or in Xcode, usually. And the split also changed. There's another version out there that is separate by. I think it's an older version. So that took me a while to figure that out, why that wasn't working. And that's one of the reasons I created this message window down here to figure out what was happening in the splitting. So I'm splitting that into an array and then going through that array. So I'm splitting each line. And then each line, of course, has the two elements, the Spanish word and the English word. And there I'm splitting by the tab character. Letting Spanish equal, and I'm putting this into an array called key def. So 0 is going to take lowercase. Element 1 is my English, making that lowercase, so it doesn't matter how it's in the document. And then I'm going to add to my Spanish-English dictionary with the key being the Spanish word and the value being the English word. And here's where I did that display to make sure everything was coming in correctly. It was Spanish means English with a new line character. On the Show English button, so they type in their value here. I'm going to put that in a variable called Spanish. I'm going to get my dictionary, look for the Spanish word, apply it to English. Now, if Spanish is null, they didn't type something in, or if English is nil, it didn't find it, then I'm going to put not found here and turn the color to red. Otherwise, I'll put the English word there, that's the else fork here, and turn it to black. The Clear Fields button just simply clears the two text fields and the text view. Now, the Add New Pair. Wanted to provide some more experience with a UI alert. So I created a UI alert that has two text fields, one for English, one for Spanish, and I pre-populated those with gato and cat. Just as an example of what I'm looking for there. And then in my submit action, if I click the submit button, it's going to call a method update terms. So that's going to be what it calls. It passes the Spanish and English here. So there's my update terms function. It's going to add that to my dictionary that's in documents, actually in my running in the project. And then I am going to rewrite that file, I write the entire dictionary out. And I could have used Susan a pen, but rewriting this amount of text data doesn't take very long. It's a split second. So I'm going to go through each element in my dictionary and write it out to new data. That's a string variable with a new line character. And then I'm going to save that, called the save document, write that file back out. And if successful, we'll say data saved. I probably should have put and if it wasn't successful, do something else. But so we're going to run this and add to our data so you can see this actually works.
So since you didn't specify that it's going to an array, is just inherently it knows it's going to be an array?
I did specify Spanish English as my array.
Okay, I see that there. Okay. Thank you.
So the key here is I lowercased the word Spanish. So if they put it in as uppercase, I want to keep everything lowercase just for consistency. It doesn't matter how they type it in. It's all going to be lowercase. Same with the English. So it might be easier to see this if I spread this out a little bit more. So they can see. So here's the name of my dictionary, the key in square brackets, equals, and the value. All right, so let's run this again. I'm going to run the change simulators because you don't see, notice the output here. It just shows the data. I'm going to change my simulator so you see something, so you see it actually is creating the documents directory file. So let's change this to, let's try another version. All right, I'm going to open up another file because I did an earlier version of this when I was playing around with a bunch of stuff. So let's open another project. This is sort of a combination of the RTF and the read-write. So here's the RTF portion. Here's the Spanish English. All right, so let's run this one. Okay, so that's pretty. So here's the add new. Now I'm going to add gato and cat. Oh, I already got it there. Let's do another Spanish word here. Cameo in this truck. Add that in. So I'm going to submit. I'm told the data was saved. Now I'm going to close my project. And I'm going to come in and show you how you can get rid of projects in here. So if you look at just the home page, you can go to Window, sorry, Hardware, Home. Scroll over, and you're going to see your projects that you've installed. If you want to get rid of any of them, you can simply hold the mouse button down, and you'll get little X's, and you can delete these. That's how you clear up space in your emulators if you've installed a bunch of stuff. I'm going to see if, and then just click Home again. That'll turn those off. I'm wondering if I can get to my document files. I was going to try to erase that file.
If you go to files, can you go down to the ones that are on the iPhone?
It didn't look like it. Let's go back there. Oh, on my phone. But it's not showing. Let's see if we can search for Spanish. Oops.
So Stephen, when class started, you made a comment about the 2 different delete keys on the Mac keyboard being frustrating.
Yes.
That came to life for me on Saturday when I was having to delete all of the constraints when I was doing the vary traits.
Right.
I hit the wrong one.
Yeah, I think you can probably get an extended keyboard that might have a backspace and delete key, but
oh, I was going crazy.
Well, I don't see any way that gets us where we need to go, Christopher.
Yeah, I'm wondering where it is then.
And again, the emulator is probably gonna be a little more restrictive than your phone would be. And I don't use an iPhone; I use an Android, so I know how to get into Android and look. Because I've actually added apps to do that for me, or to help me maintain stuff. So I'm gonna bring up another emulator. Actually, I think, yeah, I was thinking if I got rid of this project, maybe get rid of the data file, but it probably won't. All right, so again, I'm just going to close all my emulators. So I'm going to try to run this in another emulator. In fact, let's run it in, I'll run it something that I know I haven't used. All right, I think I accidentally set a breakpoint. This is another issue I came up with this week. I had errors coming up and I couldn't figure out what the error was. I've got with this thread 1 breakpoint, and I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't think about the fact that, oh, somehow I accidentally set a breakpoint. Okay, so here's our project. Notice it says file created in documents directory. Probably should put a new line character in that because then it starts casa means house. Now I'm going to close this, stop it running. I'm going to run it again. And the second time, you'll notice it doesn't do that because that document now exists in our documents directory. It didn't have to create it. That's how you can test to make sure it actually created the file, and now we'll use it from here on. So let's add new in this case. So in this case, I don't have the gato in there yet, so I'm going to say submit. Document save gato. Let's do one more. I'm just going to toggle that off. Add new. Spanish comes first. Submit. Okay, so it says it saved that. Now, once again, I'm going to end my program and start it again. And you'll notice we get gato and camion. They're both in there. So it's also writing to our data, keeping it persistent, so when we come back, that data is there. So for those of you doing a data project that doesn't include a lot of data, I would consider using a text file inside the documents directory, and then you can use these routines to update your project or update that data file.
If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the iOS app development cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.